Good day, everyone, and welcome back to Coulter Start School's online class. Today, we will be learning about science for primary 5. But before we start, I would like to introduce myself again. My name is Teacher Layla. I hope you did not forget about my name, okay? In today's lesson, we will be discussing about Chapter 2, which is about animal and plant adaptation. But before we start, I want you to grab your Inside Out Science 5 book and turn it to pages 18 to 25. Again, grab your Inside Out Science 5 book and turn it to pages 18 to 25. I'll give you 30 seconds to get it. Okay, do you already have your books with you? Then let's start. First off, I want to give you an overview of the different topics that we are going to discuss in this video. So in this video, we have two parts. The first part is about what are adaptations. We are going to define what are or what is adaptations. Under this one, we are going to discuss why is adaptations important to living things and what are the two types of adaptations. Now, for part 2 of this video, we are going to discuss how do animals adapt to their environment. Adaptations for moving in water, adaptations for breathing in water, adaptations for flight, adaptations for hot conditions, and adaptations for cold conditions. In the next slide, I have prepared there a video which will discuss about adaptations. I want you to watch carefully and we will discuss the content of the video after you watch it, okay?
Every day, all around us, we can see examples of adaptations within our own species, within species of other animals, and within members of other kingdoms. Put simply, an adaptation is a feature of an organism that gives it some sort of benefit or advantage. They could help it build a shelter, find and hunt food, protect itself, or compete against others for mates, food, and resources. Adaptations can help it in a range of aspects relating to its survival. Adaptations can be categorized into three main groups: structural or physical, behavioral, and physiological. Let's now look at the differences between these groups by looking at some examples. Structural adaptations, also known as physical adaptations, are physical features of the body that assist in some way with survival or reproduction. Some obvious examples include having horns to defend against predators and to compete against others, having fins for aquatic animals who need to swim efficiently, and having armor to defend against predators. Having camouflage that helps you blend in with your environment is also a very useful adaptation to have. It can help you hide from predators who might be looking for a quick snack. It can also make your prey harder to see you, which allows you to get in close and get a sneak attack. A structural adaptation of a lot of plants is to have brightly coloured flowers, which attracts insects and assists with the pollination process. Behavioural adaptations are things that the organism does which gives it some sort of benefit, and for the most part these are innate behaviours, which means they are born with the ability and the drive to do them. Herding is a great example of a behavioural adaptation. Not only does it help you find food easier as a group, but it also helps you spot predators and raise the alarm. Socialization is another important behaviour that's observed in a lot of species. It allows behaviours to be taught to other members of the same species, it allows opportunities for relationships to develop, and it promotes cooperation. Setting a trap, like a spider spinning a web, is a great strategy to try and catch some food. Being the most intelligent invertebrate, the octopus is capable of mimicking other animals in order to get closer to its prey. Physiological adaptations are things that the organism's body does without necessarily having to consciously tell it to do so. For example, a distinctive feature of mammals is that the females produce milk, which is a nutrient-rich food source for their offspring. It doesn't choose to produce the milk, but it just does, and in doing so, that's helping the survival of the next generation. Producing poison or venom is another example of a physiological adaptation. A snake or a stingray producing venom and being able to inject that into its prey will help it catch it. And a toad's body producing poison will help deter its predators. In order to summarize what we've covered today, have a look at this snail. I want you to think of a structural adaptation, a behavioral adaptation, and a physiological adaptation. Here are some examples that you could have had. And that's it for today. I find this topic really fascinating and I hope you did too. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.
Again, the video is about adaptations. Now let us define what is adaptations. It is a change or process of change by which an organism or a species becomes better suited to its environment. In another definition, adaptation is also the features that help living things and non-living things survive and cope up with the different changes in an environment. So remember in our previous topic about living things in the environment, we discussed there the different 5 factors in an environment, namely your water, your air, your soil, your temperature, and all of that stuff. And all of these factors are actually changing factors, meaning they are not constant and they will change over time. Now, this is something, or this is the reason why animals have the ability to adapt to their environment. Since all of these factors are essential in animals' life, okay, they cannot change it. That's why all they have to do is to adapt to all of these changes, okay? Now, why is adaptations important to living things? We have 4 reasons why. The first one is that adaptations help living things to cope with non-living thing factors in the environment. The second factor or importance is that adaptations help living things to get food, air, and water. Because all of these animals are able to adapt to the different changes in its environment, it can help them get their food, air, to breathe in air, and water. Okay? And the third importance of adaptation to living things is that adaptations help living things to hide from predators. So as mentioned in the video, camouflage is one of the adaptations of living things which helps them hide from their predators or the ones that would eat them, okay? And the last importance of adaptations to living things is that adaptations help living things to reproduce, okay? Since animals are able to adapt to their environment, they will be able to go to one place to another to find their mate. This way, they will be able to reproduce or to produce their own babies or offsprings, okay? So those are the 4 importance of adaptations in living things. Now, let's proceed to discussing the 2 types of adaptations. Now, if you will notice, the video explained 3 adaptations, but in this video, we will just focus on the structural adaptation and behavioral adaptation. Now, let's discuss the first one, which is the structural adaptation. What do we mean by this one? Structural adaptation are the physical features of living things that help them in its survival. This include the body color, shape, and covering. Again, when we say structural, meaning we are dealing about the physical features of the animal. What are example of this one? Okay, we have here the first one. On the left-hand side of your screen, you can see there, ducks have webbed feet to help them swim well in water. The webbed feet is this one, okay? This actually helps them to swim well in water, okay? Not only just an accessory organ in a dock, but it has a function, okay? Now we have this one, the second picture right here. Can you see an animal in this picture? Let's see, okay? So the stick insect, which is pointed by this arrow right here, blends into their surroundings to escape predators. This is what we mean by camouflage, when an animal actually adapts to the color of its environment so that the predators or the bigger animals that would eat it will not be able to see it, okay? Now, that is for structural adaptation. Again, when we say structural adaptation, these are the physical features of animals that help them survive the environment. Now, let's proceed to the second type of adaptation, and that is behavioral adaptations. What do you mean by this one? Behavioral adaptations are ways in which a living thing behaves that helps it survive. This include moving in groups and migration. Now, let's have an example. Fish swim in large group to protect themselves from predators. And we have here, group of fish is called school. Okay, so as you all know, some fishes are not big as other fishes. Now, when you're like a sardine, which is a very small type of fish, what they do in order to protect themselves from predator is that they swim in large group, and in this large group of fish is actually called a school of fish. In this way, they can protect themselves from being eaten by bigger fishes in the ocean. Okay, so this is one behavioral adaptation among animals. And the second one is that during winter, humpback whales migrate to warmer waters to reproduce. Okay, so in the case of these whales, they move from one place to another. When we say migration, they move from one place to another at different times of the year when the place that they live in is no longer suitable for them. So for example, they live in the Arctic Ocean. Now, when it's already winter in the Arctic Ocean, they will migrate or move to, let's say, for example, the Pacific Ocean, because it will be warmer in there and it will be suitable for them to live. Okay, so this is the second type of adaptation, which is the behavioral adaptation, meaning this is how animals behave in order for them to survive the environment. Okay, so I hope that it's clear to you the two types of adaptation. Structural adaptation, meaning the physical features of animals, and behavioral adaptation is the how animals behave in order to cope up with their environment. Okay? Now, let's proceed to how do animals adapt to their environment? We have here the different adaptations of animals in their environment. Now, let's start with the first one, adaptations for moving in water. Some animals have body parts that help them move in water. An example is fishes that use their fins and tails to balance and steer their bodies in water. Okay, we have here another example, a turtle and a seal, which have flippers, which is this one. This is the flipper for the turtle, and this is the flipper for a seal that helps them swim. Okay, and the next example is a toad and a penguin, or a frog and a penguin, which have web feet, which we already discussed a while ago, which also help them swim in water. Okay, so all of these animals have their special features that help them move in water. In the case of the turtle and the seals, they have these flippers right here, which help them move in water. In the case of a frog and a penguin and a duck, they have the web feet, which also helps them to move in water. Okay, and in the case of fishes, they have their fins and tails to balance and steer their bodies in water. Okay, so that is the first adaptation of animal, adaptation for moving in water. Okay, now we have here the parts or the anatomy of a fish. Okay, now most fishes have streamlined bodies which help them move quickly in water. A streamlined body is narrow at both ends and broad in the center. Okay, so this shape of a fish is actually what helps them move faster in water, and this is what we call the streamlined body. If you will look at the picture right here, this is an example of a streamlined body where it is narrow at both ends, so from the end to the beginning, but it is broad in the center. Okay, so I want you to take note of this one. Fishes have streamlined bodies which help them move faster in water. When we say streamlined, it is narrow at both ends but broad at the center part of its body. Okay? Now, we have here a science experiment. It is about how does a streamlined shape influence the speed of our transportation engines. But since we are not yet at school, what I want you to do is to click this YouTube link in here and it will lead you to the video, okay? The concept will explain streamlined shape, okay, and how it actually influences the speed of our modern transportation system for today. I want you to watch this one to give you a better idea of what is streamlined shape, okay, since we already discussed it among fishes and how it is applied to our modern time today, okay? I want you to watch this link, okay? Now, we have here the second type of adaptation, and that is adaptation for breathing in water. Animals need oxygen to stay alive. Animals that live on water can get dissolved oxygen in the water or oxygen above the water. An example is fishes that have gills that help them take in dissolved oxygen from the water. So just like the animals on land, animals on water also take in oxygen. How? A fish which has a gill, okay, so the gill is the organ which actually helps the fish breathe in underwater. Okay, so we have here the picture of a fish showing its gills. Okay, so gills is like a fan-shaped organ on the head of a fish which help it take in dissolved oxygen in water. Without these gills, fishes will not be able to dissolve or breathe in water. Okay, so this organ right here is very essential to our aquatic animals. Okay, now we have here another statement. Crabs and mudkeepers cannot move too far away from water source. Why? Okay, we have here a picture of a crab and a mudkeepers. I know some of you might not be familiar with this one, okay, but this is also an example of an aquatic animal. But let's answer this question. Why do crabs and mudkeepers cannot move too far away from water? Now we have here the answer. It is because crabs and mudkeepers needs to keep their skin and gills wet. This allows oxygen in the air to diffuse into the moist skin and into the gills and body, allowing them to breathe. This is why they limit themselves to humid habitats and requiring that they keep themselves moist. Okay, so this is the reason why. As you can see, most crabs stays in areas where there is accessible water and as well as mud keepers because they need to keep themselves wet in order for them to take in or to breathe oxygen. Okay, I hope that that is already clear to you if ever you wonder why crabs actually stays in wet areas. Okay, now let's proceed to the next one. Still under adaptations in breathing in water. Some animals that live in water take in oxygen from the air. They have blowholes or special nostrils that open when they are at the water surface and tightly close when they are underwater. So not all fishes or aquatic animals have gills, okay? Some animals, just like dolphins and whales, have what we call blowhole which help them breathe, okay? So in order for, how does this blowhole function is that when they already need to breathe, they will rise up into the air and then open their blowhole, okay? And then when they are already underwater swimming, this blowhole is tightly closed. And we have here another example. The seal and crocodiles have special nostrils, okay? Now, I have here with me a video which will show how does this blowhole functions from a dolphin, okay? I want you to watch carefully. Okay, so that is how blowholes functions among dolphins and whales. Whenever they feel like they want to breathe, they will rise up into the surface and then blow water and then take in oxygen, okay? Now let's proceed to the third type of adaptation, and that is adaptations for flight. Now what about this one? Animals such as bats, birds, and some insects are able to fly. So not only birds are the animals that are able to fly, we have mammals just like bats and insects just like your flies, your mosquitoes, your butterfly and dragonfly can fly as well, okay? Now, birds have strong flight muscles which allow them to move their wings. Birds have feathers which are light and strong. They keep the flight muscles warm so that the muscles can work properly. And lastly, the bones of a bird are hollow yet strong. This reduces the body weight of the bird, making it easier for it to fly. So these are the different factors why birds can fly, okay? Now we have here a picture. This is a picture differentiating the bone of a bird and the bone of a human. Now in this upper part right here, you can see there the bird bone, and the lower part right here, we have there the human bone. If you will notice, the bone of a bird has more air spaces than a human bone. This air spaces is actually what makes the bird bones light, allowing it to fly easier, okay? Now, I have here another video which will explain the adaptations for flight among birds and how they can do it, okay? Again, I want you to watch and listen carefully because this will help you better understand the adaptations for flight among animals, okay?
Bird flight is beautiful, right? Like, wouldn't it be amazing if humans could fly? The answer is, unfortunately, no, because birds have so many compromises built into their bodies to enable them to fly up in the sky. Things that make them lighter, stronger, or more rigid. Let's take a tour through bird bones and I'll show you what I mean. Many bird bones are thin and delicate, which helps save weight, and many of their bones are hollow. Hollow bones should technically be lighter to allow the bird to lift themselves into the air. More on that in a minute. But you know what mammals do on the inside of their bones? They have marrow, which is where red blood cells are produced. You know, the things that let us absorb oxygen. Hollow bones can't do this, which is a compromise. So birds have some bones with marrow, specifically this part of the wing, this part of the leg, this part of the spine and hips, the wishbone, and the shoulder blades. Side note, there are birds which have no hollow bones. Loons, penguins, and puffins spend lots of time swimming, and they each have lost their hollow bones. We think the extra weight helps them to dive. Strangely, flightless birds like the ostrich and emu do have hollow bones. Hollow bones are more brittle than solid bones, and you can kind of tell by looking at the skeleton that the bird's bones are not able to take a hit from a predator. Birds rely on their ability to escape into the air and never be hit in the first place. Another cool thing about bird bones is that birds have found use for this extra space. Their respiratory system connects into some of their bones, which means that when they breathe in, some of that air is stored inside of their bones. But we're not done, because bird bones are hollow, but they are not actually light. If you took a living bird and a living rodent that weighed the same, then compared just their skeletons later, their skeletons would weigh the same as well, which is strange, right? You would think that hollow bones would make them lighter. But the solid part of the bird's bones is also denser, leading to an equal weight. It turns out that hollow bones are not a weight-saving strategy, but a way to get a strong, stiff skeleton that can withstand the forces of flight. It's a two-level compromise where the bird needs a strong skeleton to fly, but it also needs a light skeleton to fly. So many other useful functions of bones are lost. I hope you see now that birds gain a lot from their ability to fly, but they also sacrifice other things to make that happen.
Now, I hope this video let you better understand why some birds, not all, have hollow bones which help them fly. Okay, so this is one way on how birds actually adapts to flight. So if we will discuss or if we will determine whether this adaptation is a behavioral or a structural adaptation, what do you think it will be? It's definitely structural adaptation because it's already built in the system of a bird, okay? It's already its physical features that help it fly, okay? Now let's proceed to the next one. We have here examples of animals that can fly. The first one is a bat, okay? A bat is a mammal and it has the ability to fly. We have here flies. Fly is an example of an insect, and just like a bat, it has the ability to fly. We have an eagle. We all know what an eagle is. An eagle is a bird which of course has the ability to fly. And we have here a dragonfly. A dragonfly is a type of insect as well which has wings and of course an animal that can fly. And all of this four animals are example of animals that can fly. And as you can see, the common thing about them is that they have wings, okay? All of these wings help them fly, okay? Without these wings, do you think these animals can fly? Definitely no. Now, let's proceed to the next type of adaptation, and that is adaptations to hot conditions. Animals that live in hot environments, such as deserts, have adaptations that allow them to live in hot and dry condition. And as you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see there a camel. Camels are animals that are very well adapted to hot conditions. They can be able to survive without food and water for long periods of time. A camel can last up to 7 months without drinking water and it can still be alive. Camels have hams that store fat in which it uses for energy when there is no food. And the hump is what we have in here, pointed by the arrow. This is a hump or a curve on the back of a camel which helps it store fat, and it uses when there is no no food available around it. Okay, so it's like a storage of food among camels. That is the function of this hump. And then we have here, camels conserve water by having very little sweat and urine. So this is also another adaptation of camels in order for them to last the hot temperature in the desert. And the next one is that camels can drink up to 200 liters of water in 3 minutes. Can you actually drink 200 liters of water in 3 minutes? I don't think that a human can actually do it, okay? Only camels can, okay? Now, we have here another question. Camels have long curly lashes. How do this help them adapt to the desert environment? Now, as you can see here in the picture, these camels actually have long eyelashes. And what are the function of this one? Camels have long lashes because it keeps the sand that is blowing around out of their eyes. Now, we all know that camels are very much common in desert places. And when we say desert, these are places that is covered in sand. Now, these long lashes of camels actually what keeps the sand that is blowing around out of their eyes. So these long lashes have functions for camels as well. They are not just there for accessory, and this is also another type of adaptation among camels, okay? I hope that this is already clear to you. Adaptation in hot condition. Some animals have their features which help them adapt to hot conditions. Okay, we have here another example still under adaptations to hot condition. We have here a picture of a fennec fox. A fennec fox has large ears that helps remove excess heat from its body. As you can see here in the picture, this fox definitely has a large ear. And this ear is not only for the features of the animals, but it also helps it remove excess heat from its body. And we have here another one. Fennec fox soles are covered with thick furs which protect them from the hot ground. So the paw or the soles of a fennec fox is actually covered in thick furs which will help them from the hot ground of the desert. Okay? So this is under adaptations for hot condition. And we have here different animals. We have here the kangaroo rat, the tokay gecko, and the Gila monster. Some animals such as kangaroo rats, desert lizards, and Gila monsters hide in the shade to avoid the sun. They look for food during the night when the temperature's cooler. So not all animals in the desert are actually well adapted to it. Okay, unlike the camels who can stay longer without drinking water or in the hot heat of the desert, these animals, the kangaroo rat, the tokay gecko, and the Gila monster, are animals that cannot tolerate this heat. That's why what they do is, this is an example of a behavioral adaptation. They will just stay in the shade during the morning and then they will hunt for food during the nighttime when it's already cooler. Okay? I hope that this type of adaptation is already clear to you. Now let's proceed to the next one. Okay, so the last adaptation that we're going to discuss for today is adaptations to cold conditions. Some animals live in the north and south poles where temperatures are very low. Now we already discussed about this one. North Pole and the South Pole are actually the coldest part of the planet because this area is very far away or does not receive enough sunlight or sun ray. Okay, that's why these places are very cold. Okay, now what about this one? Polar bear are animals that are very adapted to cold conditions. Okay, polar bears has a thick layer of furs which trap heat, which is this one. The color of the polar bear fur is white, and this fur covering the polar bear's body is very thick. That's why it allows it to stay in cold areas. Okay, it's like a jacket which they have on that allows them to live in cold areas. And then we have here another one. Polar bears have black skin which absorbs heat from the sun. Now, if you will look at the bottom picture right here, looking closely at the skin of a polar bear, you can see there that it's dark or it's black. Now, this black skin of a polar bear is actually what helps it trap heat or absorb heat to its skin, okay, to its body to keep itself warm. And the next one is that polar bears has a blubber, which is a thick layer of fat under its skin that helps it keep warm. Okay, so I want you to take note of this one again. Polar bear has a blubber. This blubber is a thick fat which makes it or helps it keep itself warm. Okay? Now let's proceed to the next type of adaptation, and that is adaptations to hot conditions. Animals that live in hot environments such as deserts have adaptations that allow them to live in hot and dry condition. And as you can see on the left hand side of your screen, you can see there a camel. Camels are animals that are very well adapted to hot conditions. They can be able to survive without food and water for long periods of time. A camel can last up to 7 months without drinking water and it can still be alive. Camels have hams that store fat in which it uses for energy when there is no food. And the hump is what we have in here, pointed by the arrow. This is a hump or a curve on the back of a camel, which helps it store fat, and it uses when there is no fat, no food available around it. Okay, so it's like a storage of food among camels. That is the function of this hump. And then we have here, camels conserve water by having very little sweat and urine. So this is also another adaptation of camels in order for them to last the hot temperature in the desert. And the next one is that camels can drink up to 200 liters of water in 3 minutes. Can you actually drink 200 liters of water in 3 minutes? I don't think that a human can actually do it, okay? Only camels can, okay? Now, we have here another question. Camels have long curly lashes. How do this help them adapt to the desert environment? Now, as you can see here in the picture, these camels actually have long eyelashes. And what are the function of this one? Camels have long lashes because it keeps the sand that is blowing around out of their eyes. Now, we all know that camels are very much common in desert places. And when we say desert, these are places that is covered in sand. Now, these long lashes of camels actually what keeps the sand that is blowing around out of their eyes. So these long lashes have functions for camels as well. They are not just there for accessory, and this is also another type of adaptation among camels, okay? I hope that this is already clear to you. Adaptation in hot condition. Some animals have their features which help them adapt to hot conditions. Okay, we have here another example still under adaptations to hot condition. We have here a picture of a fennec fox. A fennec fox has large ears that helps remove excess heat from its body. As you can see here in the picture, this fox definitely has a large ear. And this ear is not only for the features of the animals, but it also helps it remove excess heat from its body. And we have here another one. Fennec fox soles are covered with thick furs which protect them from the hot ground. So the paw or the soles of a fennec fox is actually covered in thick furs which will help them from the hot ground of the desert. Okay? So this is under adaptations for hot condition. And we have here different animals. We have here the kangaroo rat, the tokay gecko, and the Gila monster. Some animals such as kangaroo rats, desert lizards, and Gila monsters hide in the shade to avoid the sun. They look for food during the night when the temperatures cooler. So not all animals in the desert are actually well adapted to it. Okay, unlike the camels who can stay longer without drinking water or in the hot heat of the desert, these animals, the kangaroo rat, the tokay gecko, and the Gila monster, are animals that cannot tolerate this heat. That's why what they do is, this is an example of a behavioral adaptation. They will just stay in the shade during the morning and then they will hunt for food during the nighttime when it's already cooler, okay? I hope that this type of adaptation is already clear to you. Now let's proceed to the next one. Okay, so the last adaptation that we're going to discuss for today is adaptations to cold conditions. Some animals live in the north and south poles where temperatures are very low. Now we already discussed about this one. North Pole and the South Pole are actually the coldest part of the planet because this area is very far away or does not receive enough sunlight or sun ray. Okay, that's why these places are very cold. Okay, now what about this one? Polar bear are animals that are very adapted to cold conditions. Okay, polar bears has a thick layer of furs which trap heat, which is this one. The color of the polar bear fur is white, and this fur covering the polar bear's body is very thick. That's why it allows it to stay in cold areas. Okay, it's like a jacket which they have on that allows them to live in cold areas. And then we have here another one. Polar bears have black skin which absorbs heat from the sun. Now, if you will look at the bottom picture right here, looking closely at the skin of a polar bear, you can see there that it's dark or it's black. Now, this black skin of a polar bear is actually what helps it trap heat or absorb heat to its skin, okay, to its body to keep itself warm. And the next one is that polar bears has a blubber, which is a thick layer of fat under its skin that helps it keep warm. Okay, so I want you to take note of this one again. Polar bear has a blubber. This blubber is a thick fat which makes it or helps it keep itself warm. Okay. Now we have here the next one, still under adaptations to cold condition. We have there a grizzly bear. So a grizzly bear is an animal that is very adapted to cold condition. Just like a polar bear, grizzly bear is an animal that can stay to cold places. Grizzly bears hibernates when the environment becomes too cold and food is too hard to find. Now, what do we mean by hibernate? Hibernate or hibernation is to go into deep sleep for a long period of time. Okay? When grizzly bears hibernates, its heart rate and breathing rate slow down to conserve energy. So imagine, can a human actually hibernate or sleep for a long period of time? Grizzly bears are actually like Sleeping Beauty, right? Where they can sleep for a long period of time. Okay? Now let us watch a video which will explain hibernation process among these bears. It was said in the video that this grizzly bear hibernates for 7 long months. During this process, the grizzly bear sleeps for a long period of time. This will help them conserve their energy. They hibernate when the area or their environment will already be too cold for them and when there is not enough food for them to find. Okay, now I hope that this let you understand our topic about adaptations to cold conditions better. Okay? Now, we have here another example. Seals, sea lions, and walruses have blubber to keep them warm. What is a blubber? Blubber covers the entire body of animals such as seals, whales, and walruses, except for their fins, flippers, and flukes. Blubber is an important part of a marine mammal anatomy. It stores energy, insulates heat, and increases buoyancy. So what is another example of an animal that has blubber that we've discussed a while ago? That is a polar bear. Okay, so this blubber is a thick layer of fat which helps this animal to keep their selves warm. And then we have here another example. Swallow birds migrate to warmer places before winter begin. Again, we discussed about migration a while ago. When we say migration, it is the moving from one place to another at different types of the year, when the environment or their habitat is no longer good for them, or there is no longer enough food, or it's already cold for them, too cold for them, or too hot for them. They will go from one place to another for them to be able to survive. And that is what we mean by adaptation or migration, okay? And then we have here a small picture. Look at the bottom picture right here. These are flock of swallow birds that are migrating, okay? Now, we have here another video which will show you how cranes migrate to different places around the world to help them survive. Again, I want you to watch carefully.
This is, I think, without doubt, one of the most spectacular migrations that you can witness in North America, if not the most spectacular. There's just something really uplifting and inspiring about them, and people all over the world have felt that way. They're kind of impossible to resist.
When the cranes arrive, it's the first sign that spring's coming. And then soon after, the baby calves will be coming and then hitting the ground, and the grass greens up. It's the start of the best time of year for me.
Cranes have been in the world for tens of millions of years, and they've been doing this migration for at least 10,000 years. From what we know, each individual crane will spend about 3 to 4 weeks here, and they're doing a behavior that's common with many other water birds called staging. They're kind of fattening up for the rest of their journey, and then they're also kind of meeting up with their friends, with their mates, with family.
They start doing certain social behaviors here for the first time.
They get up and there's a gigantic liftoff off the river, and it is actually deafening. So then they go out and they go to their feeding areas in the cornfields. They're gone before we put a seed in the ground, so we really coexist pretty well.
And for the cranes, it's a breakfast buffet all day, all you can eat buffet.
The cranes have adapted to where the grain is very important to their diet now. We're probably really only leaving about 250 pounds of corn that the combine isn't getting, and then the cows are cleaning up part of that. But the cranes are thriving on that little amount that we're leaving.
They're some of the world's most successful birds in terms of how long they've been around on this planet. And I think they're eating corn, even though it's only been around for 100 years, which is a tiny portion of their evolution. It's another measure of their resilience and their opportunism. They're taking advantage of a new food source.
Today in the Platte River Valley, about 95% of their caloric intake is from corn. It provides them calories, but it does not provide them nutrients or protein and some essential minerals. They get that from these wet meadows.
So even though sandhill cranes are doing well, they of course face threats just like every other species. The number one threat region-wide for them is the loss of wetland habitat and loss of habitat in general.
We really need these meadows, and we're to a point where we have to preserve the last few percent that remain along the Big Bend of the Platte and elsewhere. So we are working to restore these prairies, and also with multiple objectives in mind, to improve habitat for cranes, but also these other grassland and wetland birds.
With the cranes, they can't really shift away from this river. They really need this river system. And these birds are adapted to water and they need that, and water obviously is affected by climate. The jury is kind of out on how climate change will affect sandhills, but we know that their migration has advanced. They're arriving about 30 days earlier than they did 20 years ago. That's a very rapid shift. They can deal with all sorts of changes, but they need water and they need wetlands at the end of the day.
I think they're resilient, but I think that it's not really about them. It's about this whole Great Plains waterbird ecosystem that is on the verge of something very dangerous if we don't really put our foot down and stop it.
So just because the cranes are abundant, it doesn't mean they're not fragile. They were overhunted and they lost a lot of habitat going into the 1930s. And the US actually legislated to protect them and other native birds. Sandhill cranes can be hunted. They, in fact, are hunted in almost all states except Nebraska, where we are now. But it's always under strict conditions. So I think the success of these birds is a combination of their own natural resilience and also the fact that humans have acted to help them, to protect them. They're a symbol of hope because of their own success on their own terms, and they also symbolize what humans can achieve when we work together. Their success is our success.
This video explained how cranes actually migrate from one place to another. Okay? This ends our discussion about animal adaptation. Now let's proceed to your activity. Now that concludes our discussion about animal and plant adaptation. Now let's proceed to your activity, but before that, let's have a quick recap. In the previous slide, we've discussed what is adaptation, why is adaptation important to living things, and what are the two types of adaptation, and that is what we call your structural and behavioral adaptation. We also discussed how do animals adapt to their environment, and we discussed the first 5 type of adaptation. Adaptation for moving in water, adaptation for breathing in water, adaptation for flight, adaptation for hot conditions, and adaptation for cold conditions. Now, what I want you to do is to get your yellow book, and then let's have an activity right there. Activity 3, your class number, the date to date, and leave a space for your score because we will check it all together once you get back from your school. I want you to number it 1 to 10. Okay, now let's start. For number 1, you have there your directions, multiple choice. Write the question and the choices and circle the letter of the best answer. Again, multiple choice, write the question and the choices and circle the letter of the best answer. For number 1, we have there blank is a change or the process of change by which an organism or species becomes better suited to its environment. Again, it is a change or the process of change by which an organism or species becomes better suited to its environment. Is it letter A, living things, letter B, non-living things, letter C, adaptation, or letter D, adoption? Okay? Now let's proceed to number 2. Whales and dolphins have blank that help them breathe. This organ is usually closed when they are underwater and open when they are on the surface. Again, dolphins and whales have blank that help them breathe. This organ is usually closed when they are underwater and open when they are on the surface. Is it letter A, blowholes, letter B, mouth, letter C, nostril, or letter D, nose? Write your answer on your yellow book. Number 3, most fishes have blank, which help them move quickly in water. This body type is narrow at both ends and broad in the center. Again, most fishes have blank, which help them move quickly in water. This body type is narrow at both ends and broad in the center. Is it letter A, bluff body, letter B, streamlined body, letter C, chautodon, or letter D, macaira? Write your answer on your yellow book. For number 4, fishes have blank an organ that helps them take in dissolved oxygen from the water. Again, for number 4, fishes have blank, an organ that helps them take in dissolved oxygen from the water. Is it letter A, scales, letter B, fins, letter C, gills, or letter D, tails? Okay, now let's proceed to number 5. So for number 5 to number 10, it's true or false. Write there T if the statement is true and write F if the statement is false. Okay, now let's start with number 5. Camels have long eyelashes because it keeps the sand that is blowing around out of their eyes. Again, camels have long eyelashes because it keeps the sand that is blowing around out of their eyes. Is it true or is it false? Number 6. The bone of a bird has more air spaces than a human bone, making it easier for them to fly. Again, the bone of a bird has more air spaces than a human bone, making it easier for them to fly. True or false? Number 7, polar bear are animals that are very adapted to hot conditions. Again, polar bears are animals that are very adapted to hot conditions. Is it true or is it false? Number 8, hibernation is the condition where some animals go into deep sleep for long periods of time. Again, hibernation is the process or the condition where some animals go into deep sleep for a long period of time. Is it true or is it false? Number 9, migration is the moving from one place to another at different times of the year. Again, migration is the moving from one place to another at different times of the year. Is it true or is it false? Number 10, fennec fox has large ears that help absorb heat to its body. Again, fennec fox has large ears that help absorb heat to its body. True or false? Okay, so that ends your activity for today. Again, don't forget to do it at home. Okay, now let's have a recap on the different things that we've learned for today. For the first part of this lesson, we've discussed what are adaptation. Adaptation is a change or the process of change by which an organism or species becomes better suited to its environment. Under this one, we discussed why is adaptations important to living things. So we've discussed there the 4 importance of adaptation. And lastly, under this one, we've discussed what are the 2 types of adaptation, named your structural and your behavioral adaptation. On the second part of this video, we've discussed how do animals adapt to their environment, and we've discussed 5 adaptation. The first one is adaptations for moving in water. The second one is adaptation for breathing in water. The third one is adaptation for flight. The fourth one is adaptations to hot condition. And the last one is adaptations for cold condition. Now that ends our discussion today about plant and animal adaptation. In our next video, we will continue to discuss a different animal adaptation. Okay? Now for your homework, I want you to answer activity 1, animal adaptation, and activity 2, which is also about animal adaptation. It can be found on pages 12 to 13. Again, for activity 1 and activity 2, answer animal adaptation, which is found on pages 12 to 13 of your workbook. And for additional information about our topic, watch this YouTube link down below. If you have spare time, you can click on this link and it will lead you to a YouTube video about animal adaptation. Okay? I hope that you've learned a lot in today's discussion. Again, don't forget to do your homework and your yellow book, and I'll see you again in our next meeting. This has been Teacher Layla for Cool Series Art School's online class. Goodbye, class, and enjoy doing your homework. Bye!